Hello and welcome to Spinster's Library. I'm Claudia and this is my TBR for Jane Austen July 2024. These are the books that I am planning. I'm saying planning and not hoping and not trying. Let's not half-ass this. These are the books that I'm going to read for Jane Austen July Readathon in this year. I'm going to tell you right at the beginning, this is a dull TBR. This is a boring TBR. Okay, maybe I shouldn't just say that because I do want you to watch the video. What I'm trying to say is that this year my TBR is sensible. What has become of me? I think that's what we in the business call middle age. That's it. I've just chosen books that I genuinely think I'm going to read next month, rather than a fantasy pick and mix kind of a wish list like I usually do. If you're watching this and you're not entirely sure what Jane Austen July is, then you've chosen a really strange video to click on. Why would you? But anyway, if that's you, no judgment, a little bit of judgment, then you'll find the list to the Jane Austen July announcement video in the description box, and that will explain everything about this readathon that you've randomly clicked on without knowing what it is. But assuming that most of you know what I'm talking about. So there are 7 challenges, and here's what I'm planning to read and watch for those 7 challenges. First challenge is, of course, to read one of Jane Austen's main 6 novels. The group readathon this year is Sense and Sensibility, and I'm going mainstream. I'm going to be rereading Sense and Sensibility. Realistically, I'm probably going to listen to the audiobook. I have already listened and quite enjoyed the audiobook read by Rosamund Pike. So unless I'm feeling a little adventurous on 1st of July, I'll probably re-listen to that one. I really enjoyed the way that she presents the story with a lot of levity, a lot of humor. The book Sense and Sensibility is of course one of Jane Austen's earlier works, published in 1811. It's the story of 2 sisters, Eleanor and Marianne, who go from living in an enormous manor house to moving to the coast and losing quite a bit of their fortune. So they adjust to life in a smaller cottage. They have to deal with neighbors, they have to deal with just being poor, and I'm using that word very loosely, poor in the Jane Austen sense of the word poor. And of course they have to deal with men. They each have their own little romance, they each have their ups and downs, and they have to learn to, I guess, communicate with each other and make the best of the situation. Sense and Sensibility, I'm just going to boldly claim, is no one's favorite Jane Austen book. But it has so much merit. I really do enjoy it more with every single read. And what's fantastic about rereading this one in particular is that there is so much secrecy in the books, in particular when it comes to Eleanor's character arc, because she is so closed off herself. She's so private that not even the reader is 100% sure of what's going on in her life. And the more you read it, the more you understand the little subtle hints at what's actually going on in the story, what's going on below the surface. That's why I find Sense and Sensibility almost rewards the reader most than any other Jane Austen book for the rereading experience. The second challenge is to read a work by Jane Austen that's not one of her main 6 novels. The group reads are The Watsons and Sanditon. And I know very little about both of these. I know The Watsons is a sort of family novel, and Sanditon is a seaside romance. Both novels are unfinished, so for both of them there's not much in my edition, which also includes Lady Susan. There's, I think, 50 to 60 pages of each of these, so these are fragments really. I can't even call them unfinished novels, and I'm pretty sure these are the only pieces of fiction of Jane Austen's that I haven't yet read, although I'm not entirely sure if I've read all of her juvenilia. Probably not actually. But the point is, I haven't read The Watsons and Sanditon, so I'm coming at this challenge with a bit of a melancholy feeling, because there really isn't much left for me to discover when it comes to Jane Austen's writing. So it's going to be sad having read those 2 works and then just there not being much else to discover when it comes to Jane Austen's work. Still, quite excited about these, because it's Austen. Anyway, for reasons that will become known in just a few minutes, possibly even seconds. I'm also looking at the audiobook for this one, even though I have got it in print. And there is an audiobook read by Emilia Fox, who I know off the telly. She's a fantastic actress. I'm sure she's going to do a great job reading these two unfinished Austen novels. Let's move on to challenge number 3, and that is to read a non-fiction work about Jane Austen or her time. And this is one where I've gone a bit off rail. That sounds a lot wilder than what I'm about to tell you. Usually for this challenge, I pick a book of historical non-fiction, so something that teaches me about the Regency. I'm not a huge fan of biography, so I have not yet read a Jane Austen biography. Or I will read a work of literary analysis of Jane Austen and her writing. This time I've done neither. The book I have chosen, and in fact already ordered, and is hopefully on the way from the UK, is a book by Jenny Batchelor, and it's called Jane Austen Embroidery, Authentic Embroidery Projects for Modern Stitchers. This is from 2020. Jenny Batchelor is an author I know from an academic context. She is a professor of history at the University of Kent. I have read her writing about the Georgian era, but this is not an academic text. This is meant for the general public, and obviously in particular for people who embroider. Here's the thing, I'm not a people who embroider. I have never embroidered anything in my life. So picking a book with the title Authentic Embroidery Projects for Modern Stitchers is reaching quite high, because I'm not, in fact, a modern stitcher. I'm not entirely unfamiliar with crafts. In fact, I quite like to knit. But embroidery is entirely new to me. So as well as ordering the book, I also ordered some embroidery yarns, some needles, some embroidery hoops. Haven't got any fabric yet, but I'm sure I'll find that somewhere. And I'm fully intending this Jane Austen July to learn how to embroider. I have no illusions about this craft. I doubt that at the end of a month of trying to embroider, I'll be able to embroider any of the authentic embroidery projects for modern stitchers that Jenny Batchelor has put in her book, but it's a start, isn't it? And the book by Jenny Batchelor isn't just these projects. It's not just instructions for specific Regency-inspired projects, but it also has a bit of a history section about embroidery as a women's craft in the Georgian period. And I fully expect it also links it to Jane Austen's writing herself. I'm really hoping that Jane Austen isn't just on the title to sell the book, but that she's also being referenced in the book itself. I'm very excited about this purchase, and I'll keep you updated about my hopefully developing embroidery skills. Let's move on to challenge number 4. This is my favorite challenge, and this is why this is the only challenge where I've picked more than one book, and I'm really hoping to get to all of them. This is, listen up because this one's a long one, read a retelling of a Jane Austen book or a work of historical fiction set in Jane Austen's time. Okay, that wasn't actually as long as I made it out to be. Anyway, I've got 3 books on my TBR for this one. 2 that I want to read for certain, and the third one is a maybe if I'm on a roll and I've got no more books left to read. I have already announced a few years ago that I'm going to try and dive into Regency romance as a genre. And I read a few years ago a book by Georgette Heyer. The book was called The Unknown Ajax. I made a review about this, which you'll find linked in the description box, of course. The Unknown Ajax was recommended to me by a lot of you in the comment section. It was recommended to me as a Georgette Heyer book that's not that romantic. So if you're not into Regency romance, start with that one because it's not super romantic. I enjoyed the book, but I want to get into Regency romance, and that includes the romance bit. So I've picked another Georgette Heyer book to dive into for this year. And this is another one that came recommended by you. So this is one that popped up in the comments every now and again. And it is Venetia from 1958. I don't know much about this. I like to go into these sorts of books spoiler free, but I understand that this is a more romantic one, but still obviously quite heavy on the comedy because that seems to be Georgette Heyer's style. Just like with the others, I looked at the audiobook. This one is read by Gemma Whelan, who's also an actress I know. It sounds like she's going to do a fantastic job. Oh, in case it wasn't obvious, the reason I'm looking at audiobooks is so I can listen to Jane Austen related audiobooks while doing my Jane Austen related embroidery. So it's all part of the big plan. I'm going to be spending July in the armchair with a needle, hopefully not poking myself in the finger as I listen to some audiobooks. That's the plan. We'll see how well it goes. For the second book that I've picked for this challenge, I am still in the Regency romance genre, but I wanted to try a modern interpretation of the genre because a lot of things have changed in literature since 1958. And the book that I've picked is also one that has been recommended to me on more than one occasion in the comment section, and that is A Lady for a Duke by Alexis Hall. And this is from 2022. And I understand that this is also a romance-heavy Regency romance. And it also features a trans protagonist, which is intriguing, especially in the historical context. I have not read this author before. The title itself screams Regency romance. I don't know why the love interest in Regency romances seem to be dukes in particular. It's never like looking for a viscount or the sexy marquis next door. It's always dukes, you know, you gotta aim high. If you're unfamiliar with the British aristocracy, dukes are the highest level of it. Then, yes, I said there's 3 books for this challenge. If there's still time, if I've finished the 2 romances and I feel like something a bit more fantastical, I have also put on my TBR, with a maybe, Heartstone by L. Catherine White. This is from 2017, and pretty much everywhere is described as Pride and Prejudice with dragons. So this is an epic fantasy tale inspired by Pride and Prejudice. What's not to love about that concept? But again, this is one that I will get to if I've finished the other 2 first. So this is the backup book, in case I run out of reading while I'm wildly embroidering Jane Austen's face on something. The 5th challenge is to read a book by a contemporary of Jane Austen. I have discovered many fun books via this challenge. I quite enjoy it, even though it's a tricky one, because most books by Jane Austen's contemporaries are not as good as Jane Austen's books. However, this year, there was absolutely no question that I was going to pick up Anne Lister's Diaries. This is the volume edited by Helena Whitbread with the subtitle I Know My Own Heart, and it was published in 1988. I already mentioned Anne Lister in the announcement video, but the reason why this has just gone straight onto my TBR without even really having any other books to contend with is because Katie mentioned this book in her announcement as well and raved about it. And if Katie loves something, I know it's going to be good. So this has gone straight on my TBR. I found an audiobook version of this one as well, read by Kristin Atherton. The thing is with classics, in particular dense classics, and I fully expect Anne Lister's Diaries to be dense, is that they often flow easier when you listen to them, when you have someone reading them out to you. It just makes people of the past sound human. That sounds horrible. I'm sorry, Miss Lister. It's easier to absorb, in particular, these sort of long, convoluted sentences that people in the 18th and 19th century were so fond of. So I fully expect to listen to this one on audiobook rather than getting it on paper. What's there to say about Anne Lister? She was, as her marketing team liked to call her, the first modern lesbian. She was a rich and, I believe, often quite unlikable landowner in somewhere in the north of England. And this diary, the first volume in particular, I believe, is of her younger years, of her affairs with girls and women, and also about her, I guess, daily business as a rich landowner. Very curious about that. These were the reading challenges. Jane Austen July also has 2 viewing challenges. The first one is to watch a direct screen adaptation of a Jane Austen work. And of course, for this year, I have to pick Sanditon, the ITV series. It's been going for 3 seasons now. The first one came out in 2019, and it is an adaptation and then presumably a continuation of the Sanditon fragment that exists. I don't know if it sticks particularly to one of the continuations that have been written by various authors throughout the centuries of Sanditon, or whether it does its own thing in terms of the plot and how it develops after the fragment that we know. It has had mixed reviews, and it has had mixed reviews from Jane Austen fans. We'll see. I'm not promising I'll watch all 3 series of it, but I'll definitely start with series 1, and then if I like it, I'll continue. The 7th and final challenge for Jane Austen July is to watch a modern screen adaptation of a Jane Austen book. And for this year, I have chosen Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. This is an adaptation from 2016. It's based on the novel by Seth Grahame-Smith, which I believe came out before. I think it came out around 2010, possibly a bit before then. I have not read the book. And in fact, I don't really have much interest in reading the book. The things I've heard about it make me not want to read it. And this has nothing to do with the zombies. This has everything to do with me not liking books set in the world of Jane Austen because the style takes me out of them. And the way the characters are written takes me out of them. I've just not had great experiences with books set within the stories of Jane Austen. But do I have the same issues when it comes to an adaptation? I really don't know, but I'm willing to find out. So I'm going to watch the Zombies one. I quite enjoy zombie stories, mostly reading them because I am a wuss. I cannot deal with particularly gory television. However, this one's rated 13, so I'm sure I can handle it. So that was my unusually short and sensible and practical TBR. If you're still watching at this point, do tell me what you're planning to read. Write down your list, whether it's fantastical and extensive and you know you'll never get to all of these books without a time machine, or whether it's short and sensible and doable like mine. Let me know what you're reading. Let me know which books you're particularly excited about. And if you have read any of the books that I'm reading, let me know what you think about them. No spoilers. Next time you'll see me is going to be during Jane Austen July. So I hope you have a wonderful start to July. Thank you for watching. Bye.